Part 1. Induction. Close your eyes. Imagine a river, ancient and wide, winding through a valley of green mountains. The water is clear and cold, and it has been flowing since long before any memory. Along its banks, the peach trees grow. Their blossoms, pale pink, drift down onto the surface of the water and float away and float away. This is a story about courage, about kindness, about what it means to be chosen by something larger than yourself. Let it carry you. Part 2. The Old Couple. Long, long ago, in a small village nestled between green mountains, there lived an old man and an old woman. They had been married for so many years that they had begun to resemble each other. The same slow way of moving, the same habit of pausing before speaking, the same way of looking at things, with a patience that only comes from having looked at many things for a very long time. Every morning, the old man took his axe and walked into the mountains to gather firewood. Every morning, the old woman walked down to the river to wash the laundry. It was a simple life, quiet, unhurried. The kind of life that the mountains seemed to approve of. But there was a sorrow underneath it, not spoken of, not complained about, but present, always, like a stone at the bottom of a clear river. They had no children. For years they had hoped. Then, gradually, hope had become something quieter. An acceptance, a making peace. They loved each other deeply. They were grateful for what they had. And yet, on certain evenings, when the light was long and golden, and the village children ran past their gate, laughing, the old woman would stand very still for a moment and look, and then go back to whatever she had been doing. She never said anything. She didn't need to. Part 3. The River. One morning, the old woman walked down to the river as usual. The mountains were reflected perfectly in the still water. The peach blossoms were falling. It was that time of year, and they drifted downstream in slow pink clusters. The air smelled of spring and cold water and earth just beginning to wake up. She knelt at the bank. She began to wash the laundry, her hands moving with the practiced ease of 10,000 mornings just like this one. And then she heard something, a sound from upstream, a low, rhythmic, bumping sound, like something large moving through the water. She looked up. Coming around the bend in the river, moving against the current, as if it had a will of its own, was a peach. Not just any peach. A peach the size of a large boulder, round and perfect, glowing with a warmth that seemed to come from inside it rather than from the spring sun above. Its skin was the deep gold and rose of the most perfect peach you have ever imagined. And it moved, steadily, deliberately, directly toward her. The old woman sat very still. She watched it come. It nudged gently against the bank, directly in front of her, and stopped, as if it had arrived, exactly where it had always been going. She reached out and touched it. It was warm beneath her hands, warmer than the sun could account for. She felt something, not quite a heartbeat, but something like one. With great effort, she lifted it out of the water. It was heavier than she expected. She cradled it in both arms and carried it home. Part 4. The Birth. When the old man came home that evening, he found his wife sitting beside the great peach, watching it. He set down his axe. He crouched beside it. He placed his hand on it. He felt it too, that warmth, that almost heartbeat. "Should we eat it?" he asked. "I don't think we should eat it," she said. They sat with it for a long time, the fire crackling, the evening settling around the house, the peach glowing softly in the firelight. And then a sound. From inside the peach, a small sound, high and clear. They looked at each other. The peach began to split, not violently, gently. The way a flower opens, the seam running from top to bottom, slowly, perfectly. And the two halves fell apart. And there, nestled in the heart of the fruit, was a baby boy. He was perhaps the most perfectly formed child either of them had ever seen. Round-cheeked, bright-eyed, already looking at them with a gaze of calm, clear intelligence, as if he had been waiting, as if he knew exactly where he was, and was pleased about it. The old woman's hands were shaking as she lifted him. She held him to her chest. He made a small sound, content, like a question that has found its answer. She began to cry, quietly, the way people cry when something they had stopped hoping for finally arrives. The old man put his arms around both of them. He said nothing. He didn't need to. They named him Momotaro, the Peach Boy. Part 5. The Growing. Momotaro grew. Not as other children grow, slowly, inch by inch, year by year. He grew the way bamboo grows after rain, visibly, powerfully, with a sense of purpose in every inch. By the time he was 5, he was as strong as a boy of 10. By 10, he could lift boulders that grown men could not move. But it was not just his strength that was remarkable. It was his character. He was kind, not in a soft way, in a strong way. The kind of kindness that costs something, that acts rather than merely feels. He helped the farmers carry their loads up the mountain paths. He repaired the roofs of the elderly when the autumn storms came. He stood between the village children and the older boys who sometimes made trouble, not with anger, with a calm, steady presence that made trouble simply not worth it. The village loved him, but there was something else. Sometimes, in the evenings, he would sit at the edge of the village and look out toward the horizon, his eyes distant, thinking. He had heard the stories. Every child in the village had heard the stories of the island of Onigashima, the demon island. Far out to sea, beyond sight, beyond ordinary sailing, where the demons lived. The demons, the Oni, were not simply monsters from a story. They were real. The old people remembered. The raids that came in the night, the fires, the things taken, the people taken. Whole families, whole villages, simply gone. The raids had stopped, for now. But the demons were still there, on their island, waiting. And Momotaro, looking out at the horizon, felt something. Not anger exactly. Something older and quieter than anger. A sense of responsibility. As if the reason he had come into this world, the reason the river had brought him here, had something to do with that island. He didn't speak of this yet. He was still young. He was still learning. But he did not stop looking at the horizon. Part 6. The Conversation. One evening, when Momotaro was 15, he came to his parents. They were sitting by the fire. The old man was carving wood. The old woman was sewing. The firelight moving on their faces. Momotaro sat down. He was quiet for a long time. Long enough that both of them looked up. "I need to go to Onigashima," he said. The fire crackled. The old woman's hands stilled on her sewing. The old man set down his carving. Neither of them spoke. "I have thought about this for a long time," Momotaro said. "I know what I am asking. I know what it means for you, but I believe I was brought here for this. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I know it." The old woman looked at him for a long time. She had known. Of course she had known. Some part of her had known since the moment she lifted him out of that peach, that he had not come into the world to stay in one small village forever. "How will you go?" the old man asked. "On foot to the coast," Momotaro said. "Then by boat." "Alone?" "I will find companions on the way." Another silence. The old woman rose. She went to the kitchen. She began to make kibidango, millet dumplings, the best she had ever made. She put everything she had into them, every wish, every prayer, every year of love. She wrapped them carefully. She brought them to him. "For the journey," she said. Her voice was steady. She was proud of how steady it was. He took them. He looked at them for a moment, then at her. "Thank you," he said. Just that. But the way he said it held everything. Part 7. The Dog. Momotaro set out at dawn. The mountains were still dark against a sky just beginning to lighten. The air was cold and clean. His footsteps on the path were the only sound. He walked for hours through the mountain pass, down into the valley beyond, along the road that led toward the distant coast. He was perhaps halfway through the valley, passing through a stretch of pine forest, when he heard something behind him. He turned. A dog was following him. Not a small dog. A large, lean, gray dog with golden eyes and a scar across one ear. It stood in the middle of the path, watching him, not approaching, not retreating, just watching, with an intelligence in its eyes that was more than ordinary. Momotaro crouched down. "Where did you come from?" he asked. The dog said nothing. Dogs don't speak, and yet, somehow, the way it looked at him communicated something perfectly clearly. "Where are you going?" "To Onigashima," Momotaro said, "to drive out the demons." The dog was quiet for a moment. Then it walked forward. It sat down beside him and looked up at him, as if to say, "Then I am coming with you." Momotaro smiled. He reached into his pack. He took out one of the kibi dango, his mother's dumplings, and held it out. The dog took it gently from his hand, ate it carefully, then stood, ready. "Then let's go," Momotaro said, and they walked on together. Part 8. The Monkey. They had been walking for 2 days when they came to an orchard. The trees were heavy with fruit, and up in the branches of the largest tree was a monkey. It was watching them with bright, curious eyes, head tilted, considering. As they passed beneath the tree, it dropped lightly to the ground in front of them. It was a young monkey, quick and bright and filled with an energy that seemed almost too large for its body. Its eyes moved from Momotaro to the dog and back again. "Where are you going?" it asked. Momotaro looked at it. "To Onigashima," he said, "to drive out the demons." The monkey was very still for a moment. Something moved behind its eyes. "My village," it said quietly. 3 years ago, the demons came. I was the only one who—" It stopped. A silence. "I am coming with you," it said. It wasn't a request. The dog looked at the monkey. The monkey looked at the dog. A long moment of assessment. Then something unspoken decided. Momotaro held out a dumpling. The monkey took it and fell into step beside them. 3 now, moving toward the coast. Part 9. The Pheasant. On the 3rd day, as they crossed a wide-open plain, a shadow passed over them. Momotaro looked up. A pheasant was circling overhead. Its feathers caught the light, green and copper and gold. It was the most beautiful bird he had ever seen. It landed a short distance ahead of them and waited. As they approached, It looked at Momotaro with eyes that were calm and ancient. "I have been watching you," it said, "since you left your village. I know where you are going. I know what you are going to face." "Then you know it will be dangerous," Momotaro said. "Yes," said the pheasant. "That is why I am here." It spread its wings slightly, then folded them. "I can fly ahead. I can scout the island. I can see what you cannot see from the ground or the sea. You will need eyes in the sky." Momotaro looked at the pheasant for a long moment. Then he held out the last dumpling. The pheasant bowed its head, ate slowly, then lifted into the air and circled once above them, and came to rest on Momotaro's shoulder. 4 now, the last miles to the coast. Part 10. The Sea. The coast appeared at sunset. The sea stretched before them, enormous, the color of hammered bronze in the dying light. Somewhere beyond the horizon, invisible, was Onigashima. They found a boat, small but sound. Momotaro checked it carefully. They set out at dawn. The sea was calm that day. The pheasant flew ahead, returning periodically, reporting back with small sounds and movements that Momotaro had somehow learned to understand. The dog sat at the prow. The monkey perched at the stern. Momotaro rowed. For hours, there was only the sea. The steady pull of the oars, the creak of the wood, the sound of the water. Momotaro thought of his parents, of the fire, of his mother's hands wrapping the dumplings, of his father's face, trying to be brave and not quite managing to hide that he was afraid. He rowed harder. Part 11. Onigashima. The island appeared out of the mist, dark cliffs, black rock. A fortress at the top, its gates enormous, its walls thick and ancient. The pheasant had already been, had already found the weak points, had already mapped the paths. They landed on a rocky shore, pulled the boat up beyond the water line, and stood together, looking up at the fortress. "Are you afraid?" the monkey asked. Momotaro considered the question honestly. "Yes," he said, "a little, but not enough to stop." He looked at each of them in turn. The dog, the monkey, the pheasant. "Whatever happens up there, thank you for walking this road with me. I did not expect companions. I did not ask for them, but I would not be here without you." The dog pressed its head briefly against his hand. The monkey was uncharacteristically still. The pheasant made a low sound, deep in its throat. Then they began to climb. Part 12. The Battle. The pheasant went first. It flew at the gates, crying out, its voice like a war drum, drawing the demons to the walls. The demons were not what Momotaro had imagined. He had imagined monsters. And they were fearsome, yes, enormous, horned, their eyes red as fire. armed with iron clubs, wearing armor made of something darker than metal. But underneath the fearsomeness, he saw something else. Fear. They had not been challenged in a long time. They had grown comfortable, certain of their own power, certain that no one would come. And here, coming through their gates, was a boy, and a dog, and a monkey, and a pheasant. For just a moment, they hesitated. That moment was all Momotaro needed. The battle was fierce. The monkey was everywhere at once, fast and unpredictable, pulling weapons from demon hands, creating chaos. The dog fought with a focused, relentless determination that pushed the demons back step by step. The pheasant struck at eyes and ears from above, never where the demons expected, always somewhere else. And Momotaro moved through it all like a river, not with rage, not with hatred,